Good. Good morning so far? Yes, it's getting warm up there. Yeah.
Welcome to the banana belt.
So I'm Joshua Bainbridge. I started producing theater when I was 17 years old. I took all of my school savings and I spent it all on a project that I was working on, and by some tricks and luck, I was managed to make it all back and pay off my schooling. But I started at a very young age, just kind of jumping in with both feet, which by definition is actually a hop. And I haven't stopped since. I made a promise to myself when I started in school that I'd never take a job out of my field, and I haven't yet. So I've been working producing theater now for 11 years. And a large part of how I moved from where I began to where I am now was bullshit. I faked my way through it, and I made it up as I went. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what that process is and how you can, when you are stripped of resources, how sometimes that can help you produce your best work. Let's just get started. So theater is a visual medium, so look like you know what you're doing. That's number one. I have a crippling fear of large gatherings of people. That's something for me that I know that in my everyday life, in this room, I feel safe. I'm with this group of people. I can kind of like gauge everybody out there in that hall. I'm terrified and hiding in a corner. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, being terrified. Okay. So one of the first things that I have to kind of resolve myself to do every day is start with that mask, if you will. We're all actors, every single one of us. We might not get paid to do it. We might not get up on a stage or in front of a camera to do it, but we're acting. Okay. Right now, there's people in this room acting like they care at all about what I'm saying. And I am acting like this whole experience isn't petrifying. Okay? That's an arrangement that we make with each other every day when we decide that we're going to make some sort of connection with someone in the real world, is that we're acknowledging the fact, if we're being truthfully honest with ourselves, we're acknowledging the fact that that there's pretense there. We're putting on a role. We're performing in some way. The me that is standing here in this room and the me that's going to be privately sitting with a friend discussing the day in my hotel are slightly different people. Right? This one maybe is more protected, maybe has to be a little bit cautious about how I might navigate something than I would with someone who knows me and we have a shorthand together. Right? I think that's something that we could all agree on, that's something that we do in our everyday life. Right? So when you decide that you're going to step into the world of creating and self-producing, a lot of is what I'm going to talk about, because that's what mainly my experience is. The first mask that you have to put on is the one that makes the people that you're standing in front of think, hey, this is someone we can trust with what they're doing. Right? Just like right now, I'm saying, trust me, we'll talk, it's good, I know what I'm talking about, it's going to be fine. Right? So, part one. Why do you want to do this? And we kind of went around the room and I asked everybody what they want from this experience right now, and that's a big part of it. Before we dive into ways to make theater and to create out of using and exercising different mediums, we have to ask ourselves, why are we going to try it at all? We need to be aware of why we want to try. So this whole experience, this whole idea of putting art or creation into the world, where is that coming from? For ourselves or for the needs of the community that we're putting it into? So it's a question that functions on two levels. And the first I already asked before we start is, why are you here? And the second simply is, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to create something? I know that answer for me, and it might be deeply personal for you. It might be that you feel that this is the avenue that you are that you have chosen to take, and this is what you want, and you're hungry, and you're going to go get it. That's fine. But anytime we decide we're going to sit down and start sharing a work, or creating a work, or working with a group of individuals to nurture something into being, there are 6 very important questions for me that I always try to look at. And the first is, who are you working for? And I don't mean who's the person standing there at the other side of the table handing over a paycheck. Maybe that person doesn't exist. Maybe that person is you. But who is the work? Who is the work going to serve? Is it for me? Am I doing this work to serve myself? Am I serving my community? Who is the work for? What are you working towards? Does it end when this thing is created, and we share it, or we give it away? Does it exist in that pocket and it's gone? Or is it a stepping stone to something else? Is it a bridge? Is it part one of something that you hope to carry on for years? Is there a long-term goal? That working towards something and the goal at the end, we have to be aware are 2 different things. Because if I'm working towards a finish line, I have to be aware that everything that I'm doing on that road is tremendously important. Okay? If everything on that road, if this is the road that we're on, why are we on it at all? And I know that we're going to be in this early section, we're going to be talking a lot about why. Why are we doing it? Who are we serving? What do we want? What do we have to utilize to get there? Are we being realistic about our ability? Am I capable of doing this? Am I capable of serving everything that I need to serve to get to the end and realizing what I want when I arrive? And am I aware of my larger responsibility? And my larger responsibility when I'm creating is that I have a responsibility to myself, to my community, and to other artists to only produce something that's good. Okay? So when I get to that final question at the end and I look back at all the rest of the list, is everything serving that final point? Who here has ever been a part of a show or a production or seen something that you wondered how it ever got to the end? How did that happen? I know I have, right? We all have. We've all seen it. Guess what? You were probably sitting in that space looking at that and like, man, this one was a miss. This was a misfire, or I don't know. How many have been involved in something that you didn't feel confident about? And then you're sitting there like, why am I here? What are we doing? What is this serving? Who is this helping? Right?
What was I thinking?
What was I thinking?
That's a good idea at the time.
It was, yes. I have a responsibility in the work that I do to make sure that I don't put anything in front of people that I'm not proud of. Because if I misstep, if I am fail to be realistic, if I fail to look back at myself and say this is working or this is not working, I could be killing audience members for you guys. Right? Because if I'm a hobbyist, if I decide this is what I want to do with my spare time, and I've got another profession that I'm pursuing, and this is something that I'm going to do and dedicate my time to, that's a wonderful idea, and maybe I won't put myself in a power position. Maybe I won't be the person leading that project. Maybe I shouldn't be the one carrying that responsibility. Because I know that a group of my friends and I, we like to get together and play softball. Once a week, if we're lucky, maybe we'll get 2 games in a week. I don't charge people $30 to see it. Right? So if I'm the hobbyist, if I'm the person that says maybe this isn't, that's not the weight that I'm choosing to carry for myself, then again, looking back at the list, who is going to be empowered to be making that call and making those decisions? Because my responsibility to you is that if someone sits in something that I'm doing and I've dropped the ball on something, or I've decided to allow people to come in and watch something that they shouldn't be watching. Every show, every experience is someone's first experience. Someone in that audience, this is their first time. And if I go in and I make that experience unpleasant for them, or something that they don't want, I'm hurting you as well. So, that being said, let's now strip it down. What do I need to create a piece of theater? To do a show? What do I need? Start, yeah, please. What do I need? What's that?
A story.
A story, yes. Maybe I need a story. Maybe I need a story to decide what piece of theater I'm creating. Need a venue.
Performers.
Need performers. Vision.
An audience.
Well, I could make the thing, doesn't mean anyone will see it. I'm sure we've all been there too. What if I said today that we were going to leave this room with a complete project? We were going to leave this room with a script to rehearse. And we could walk out of this and perform when everyone gets back for the next panel.
We need time.
We need time. Yes. Thank you. Who puts those constraints and limitations around our project?
Sometimes it's ourselves.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's whoever's want to pay or
Yeah.
not want to pay you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I hate dealing with that stuff. I'm sure we all do. So for the most of my career thus far, I've focused on complete self-produced projects because that's where I feel that I'm free to do what I need to do. Now, I had a hard time choosing what stream I was going to place this submission for SPARC into, and what I landed in was the something for nothing stream. But what I battled with was the stream about sustainable art in rural communities. When I decided to start self-producing, I decided that I was going to create something that was going to, I didn't know how to get funding. I had no idea at the time, 17 years old, how to apply for funding, how to go out and get money. So I decided to, like I said, I self-financed my first project. And then I decided to create a map for myself in the way that I was going to lay out my projects so that they could start, the revenue from one would feed into the next. And it was a slow build over, well, not really too slow. It was just a build over 5 years. That after 5 years, we were able to just roll out 3 shows a year with a company of actors that we worked with, and it sustained itself. One thing that's happening, I'm seeing in my community right now that I've kind of stepped away from that, is that there has been last night, and it's heartbreaking to me, and I wish that I could have been there. Last night, the local theater organization, the community theater organization, held a meeting for the general public to ask what they need to do to help save their community theater group. What we're seeing that audiences are leaving. Audiences are being fickle right now, and you can't rely on just because they were there at the last show that they're going to be there at the next one. So how do we create something that will sustain and keep an audience? Well, everyone's probably heard that quote, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. I think that's dangerous when you're talking about producing and creating, because sometimes what you do doesn't have to change for your results to dramatically shift. I think the more dangerous thing is that when you see those shifts happening, is to redouble your efforts while losing sight of your goal. As we stop looking at what is happening in the community and why the changes are happening outside of what we're doing. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. I think that there are probably a lot of people here right now who, I have a good mentor that I work with a lot, and he always advised me to break up your PowerPoint with pictures of cats. Okay. Because it's something that everyone's like, oh man, that's heavy. That's a heavy thing to think about. Oh, a kitty! Nice! So we can thank Clayton Windat, who will be speaking tomorrow evening, for encouraging me to always include pictures of kitties in my PowerPoint presentations. Okay. Before we get into the creation aspect, I was developing this initially as something that this workshop would be kind of geared towards people that are really interested in self-producing. So there's a section here that I've got about budgeting that I don't know how valuable will necessarily be to everybody. But it's just a very practical, simple breakdown for people that are looking at self-producing their own work. Okay? So budget, it sucks. It is really totally the worst part, but it's necessary. It's not fun, but it's necessary. My first suggestion, if you're self-producing, do not try to do it alone. Do not try to work that budget alone. Okay? I am a very fairly practical person, but I have a friend who I work with very closely when producing, and she is my budget sounding board at all times. I will bring her something because chances are I'm going to miss something. I'm not going to try to carry the whole load myself. I'm not silly enough to think that I'm capable of doing that. We're all fallible. Okay? So, we need to be specific and realistic when we're looking at our spending, and then only once we've done that can we be a badass money-saving mofo. Okay? But we can only be a badass money-saving mofo when we are being specific, realistic, and we are asking the people that we trust to give us guidance. Okay? So, who here has done budgets for plays before? A few people. Okay. So a very simple breakdown that I tend to like to follow is always set myself my low-end projection and my high-end projection. Okay? Anyone know why you might want to do this? What is my absolute high-end projection and what's my low-end projection?
Well, you're planning to buy some materials and all of a sudden something happens somewhere and they decide to hike the price. So all of a sudden, $500 extra.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially with revenue coming in for ticket sales. Your theater might seat 100, but you're supposed to actually calculate it at like 33%
Right.
house.
Yes.
Because of course you want a full house, but
Yes.
odds are not good. You will achieve that every night.
The high-end projection for me, when I'm calculating my budget, the closer I get to that, the more I know that I'm taking money out of everyone's pocket. Okay? I've worked on shows where I've seen the budget breakdown afterwards. I worked on a show with the same individual who I will not name, and I worked with them on a few different occasions. And then things did not go the way that I had been kind of led to believe they would. I asked to see the budget, and I saw that their high-end projection had it that we would have had to sell more tickets than the house actually could allow. Okay. All right? So I always make sure that I'm being very clear about this is my absolute line. if I spend more than this, there's no way that anyone's making profit. There's no way that this is going to work. Okay? So the trick then is to stay as close to that low end as possible. I just put this in again. I didn't know what experience I was going to have on the other end of the table, so just so that people can take a look at it. Okay? Now we're actually going to get into the actual meat of what we're talking about here. Part 3. Build your team. Get the band together to make some sweet, sweet 3D producing music. Okay? So what's going to go on this is going to be a really discussion-based thing. So I included pictures of the 2 greatest teams in the history of teams. The A-Team.
Yeah.
Josie and the Pussycats. Okay? There's no topping those 2 teams. It's what we're going with. This is our visual. Just live it, love it. Okay? So
that's your second cat image, I'm counting it.
that's why I did it. Yes. Okay. It's Josie the Pussycat who's trying to get another cat on there. All right. So here we go. When self-producing, first thing you need to look at is you need to sit down and think, okay, and is this something that I'm prepared to dedicate my whole life to? Okay. This is a job. This might be a passion. How many hours actually exist in the day? I could try to say that I'm capable of handling all the tasks that it requires to put on a show and try to present myself as this crazy theater martyr, but at the end, who's really gaining? And is the show going to come out better because of that? The answer is no. No one's gaining, and the show's probably going to suffer if I try to do everything myself. So the first key thing is to build your team. Now, I am currently running, when I started my small production company that was running inside of our community of North Bay, and we worked ourselves up, as I said, to a 3-show season, and we were doing that yearly, and then I decided, okay, the bubble I can't fill this bubble anymore. We're existing within a bubble of this community. Eventually it's going to pop. Even if it doesn't, even if it manages to sustain what we're doing, I cannot grow outside of it. Okay? So I decided to walk away from that and to start doing shows and try to start branching off into tours and trying to share our work, because we produce original Canadian work. That's our thing. And we want to take those original shows and start sharing them with the rest of the world. So, as a young individual that doesn't necessarily have all the resources that I would like available to me, I decided that what my team had to be was multi-purpose. So, for instance, I knew that I needed to break down my team into diverse artists. That my producers, my director, my marketing team, my set builders, my costume designers, all function on more levels than just those jobs. Our cast and our crew works in both fields. So there's one job leading up to production and then one job during production. And that cuts our team in half. Okay, for anyone that does that admin work, you know that for every hour you get to spend on stage, you're probably spending 40 to 50 behind the scenes trying to get everything ready. Right? So that's why it's very important that we... I'm supposed to have a preview screen, but I don't know if this... Oh yes, diversifying. I have nothing to put on this slide. This is just the stuff we're talking about. So it's going to be... Tricked you. There's a cat on it. Okay? So, what sets you apart from the other people that are trying to do this? What sets you apart?
Limited resources, absolutely. Small community. Dryden specific, for sure.
Dryden.
Yeah.
How many shows have you managed to mount at this point? And if none, that's okay.
Yeah, brand new.
Brand new, okay. What are some of the challenges that you're facing in your community?
I'm getting it from all ends, from a venue to actors to production. Yeah, it's we're building something from nothing. Absolutely.
Who's here feeling that there's similar issues facing them from where they are right now? Unique to the room. Unique to the room. So I hand over here.
Well, we are.
Yeah.
We're a little bit ahead of you. We're 2 years ahead of you. We're doing the same thing.
What are you facing?
Well, we're different because we are original works
Yeah.
at Halliburton Center,
Right.
more or less. Venues, we've solved that issue. Partnering with other organizations in the community at large is something that we're working on even as we speak. And diversifying, we have a very interesting mix on our committee. 2 museum people, 1 social justice. I'm the theater guy, and so it's an interesting mix.
Okay.
So I find if I try to be more creative, and I have
Yes.
the time to be more creative, it saves me on money.
Yeah.
Which gives me money to give my artists when I direct a show.
Yes.
And that's my primary, it's no ego, it's
Yeah.
like I want a great show,
Yes.
so I sell out and I got money for the artists.
Yeah.
That's my primary, and I'll do anything, I'll recycle anything. Watch your bags, because you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm my eyes, the antennae are out consistently, right? And so, that's how I try to do it, because first of all, it's much more interesting,
Yes.
right? To make something out of nothing, or make something out of what someone else chose to throw out.
Yes. So,
I think it's the immigrant experience, I'm not sure, but
right.
for sure,
Yeah.
it's recycling. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about that in depth as we go. Right now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about me as an individual. When I mean the power of diversifying, is if you have a room full of people that are all intent on doing that are all intent on becoming multifaceted. I knew that because I was trying to start something in an area with so limited resources, there's other people that are trying to accomplish things. There's other people that are trying to succeed in similar avenues, or avenues that might complement what I'm doing, or avenues that might even lend experience to what I need over in my section. So I decided that what I was going to do is I was going to try to get good at as many jobs in the theater sector as I could. From even outside stuff from graphic design, practicing in installation art, to the understanding of set building and construction. I took an accounting course. I started working with visual artists, and I started helping visual artists in their practice. I went and I signed up to learn how to take classes in poetry. I went and I started learning about festival coordination, and outside of what I was already doing in theater with directing and producing and acting and writing, I decided to get good as many facets as I could, so that no matter what project's happening in my community, my job became, for the first little while, what is happening in my community, what is my community doing, where does my community need help, how can I be that help, how do I do that? Any room that I walk into, any group of people, when they say, yeah, man, I really need someone to do this, I can do that. I can be valuable to you right now. And it's not because this is going to sound, no, know what? Whatever. It's going to be just be what it is. Eventually, I might need something back. And I don't mean that I only help people when I feel that they could help me. But the more people that I help, the more people that are going to be willing to help me one day. And maybe someone has a space, or maybe someone has a line on actors, and maybe me stepping into a role and filling a spot for someone makes them feel more willing to send someone my way when I'm in a bind. My recommendation for you right now is to diversify your own talent base across the board. Try to get good at as much of this as possible. It's going to make it easier for you. It's going to be a long road there first, though.
Oh yeah.
Okay? When you start bringing in groups of people and you start looking out and trying to build that team and building those relationships from people around you or people that have similar interests or are working in the vastness of what this field can be, you start meeting people from all walks of life, from all communities, from all viewpoints, and the stronger your community becomes, the stronger of a platform you have with you. Okay, so my job when I go and I work with other groups or on other projects that might not be my own is not to stand beside them and say, "Oh, I made this possible." It's to help build that platform, get the heck out of the way, so everyone can see who's standing on it and say this is their voice being heard. I'm going to do everything I can to facilitate that. I'm going to do everything I can we all need to assist each other. The arts community, and this is something that we always forget, we are a big community. We're supposed to be, because the people that enjoy art tend to be the people that try to do it, right? So if you're sitting in this room right now, chances are you like art. There's some facet, right? No one's here that's like, actually, I don't care for this at all, really. Art, poo-poo, right? So who buys our tickets? Who comes to see our shows or watch our concerts or see our openings? It's the community needs to support itself. The problem is that when you're working in the bubble that are some of these small rural communities, everybody gets really protective of what they have. Right? So the bubble that we're working in becomes a wall. And everybody's building these walls, and you're looking over the fence and be like, "Hey, I see you've got," "No, leave me alone, it's mine." Right? Okay, fair. Our job as artists, before we can even broach the idea of starting to create and use found space or start getting unique with our development, is we have to kick holes in those walls that people are building up. We need to encourage each other to share and create together. I have no interest in functioning inside of a bubble. The bubble means that I can't grow outside of it. So when we build these walls or we get comfortable in our own little bubble, what we're doing is we're saying, I'm complacent and I'm comfortable. I'm not interested in that. And I'm sure that outside of maybe the fear of what that could be, I'm sure no one here is interested in that either. Well, thank you guys for coming today. I hope that you got something out of our talk.